I'm very, very excited about presenting the next student. His name is Jonathan Shillingford, and I'm going to read a little bit of his bio. Jonathan Shillingford is a trumpet player born in Miami. While pursuing a BM in jazz performance at the Manhattan School of Music in New York, he performed at the Lincoln Center, Rose Hall, the Jazz Gallery, and other jazz clubs like Berlin, Smoke, Dizzy's, and Small. Inspired by his Caribbean heritage, Shillingford is dedicated to expanding his musical boundaries to surrender into creativity of the moment. His presentation is called Alone in a Crowded Room, and we're really, really happy to welcome his advisor, Witness Matlu. Witness, big clap for Witness. And committee member, Farai Malak. Thank you, Farai. Please clap, Farai. And now, please welcome on stage, Jonathan Shillingford.
Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Jonathan Shillingford, and I'd like to thank you all for being here with me today as I present my project. My project is entitled Alone in a Crowded Room, which serves as a multidimensional analysis of the Black aesthetic. During my time at the Global Institute, I wanted to explore authentic ways to communicate the essence of Black music, additionally inspiring me to want to further educate myself, my peers, and others about the importance of Black artists and their contributions to society. This involved researching works from a plethora of artists from the Black diaspora, such as John Coltrane to Roy Hargrove, Nina Simone to Carrie Mae Weems, W.E. Du Bois to Nikki Giovanni, to name a few. This research culminated into 4 compositions that explore realities such as double consciousness, systematic oppression, and the continued resilience from Black people. The music is a synthesis of traditional Black folk music inspired by artists from the Black diaspora, while also giving context to social struggles that I relate to. To begin, I would like to explain the title of my project. The inspiration behind the title came from the notion of Black people being strangers, alone, in a foreign land that they are forced to start anew in, this crowded room. It has to do with what W.E. Du Bois, famous Pan-African civil rights activist, who's actually from Massachusetts. It's what he calls the veil, seeing the world through the lens of others, the lack of clarity of seeing oneself or a people group outside of social expectations. The strangeness of being alone comes with an actualization of trying to camouflage with your environment. It creates the state of double consciousness where one strives to be true to themselves, searching for visibility in a state of adversity. This Venn diagram, that isn't really a Venn diagram because I didn't use it for comparison, that you're seeing here was utilized to conceive this project. I discovered different words, different phrases that relate to the notion of one being alone and being in a crowded room. Ultimately leading me into the question, what should the blues sound like in 2023? As you can see, the many different ways that Blacks have been subjugated to feeling alone through gentrification and racism. Then to your right, the feeling of crowded room is in reference to slaves being packed in the bottom of a ship or living shoulder to shoulder in a low-income project housing. Now, I'd like to present my compositions. For the first composition, Mr. Roy Anthony Hargrove was pivotal in being the chain and the link for all Black music when he arose on the scene. He was a leading innovator within the jazz, R&B, funk, and Latin styles of music, to name a few. Not only did he push boundaries, he connected all forms of Black music, using it as a vehicle to spread knowledge and joy. Mr. Hargrove is a champion and one of my first heroes in this music. This composition is for you, Roy. In this composition, you heard the synthesis of different styles from the Black diaspora, primarily jazz, hip-hop, and R&B. Harmonically, you can hear I use the 1 minor to flat 6 major to represent Du Bois' double consciousness concept, as you can use 1 scale to successfully weave between 2 harmonies and vice versa. This musical example depicts how some Black people utilize code switching on their ongoing quest for visibility. For the second composition, in 1990, photographer Carrie Mae Weems produced 20 images along with 14 panels of text in a series entitled Kitchen Table Series. In her own words, I had been thinking a lot about what it meant to sort of develop your own voice, and so I made this body of work. It started in a curious way as a kind of response to my own sort of sense of what needed to happen, what needed to be, and what would not be simply a voice for African American women, but what would be a voice more generally for women. Using this theme of visibility, I questioned my culture, the world's stereotypes, and more importantly, my own biases about Black women, to create a composition that celebrates and continues the dialogue about creating a safe space for Black women. This dedication is for Carrie Mae Weems and my mother.
Have you seen my soul? Have you seen my mind? It feels like I left my sanity behind. It feels like I have not had a peace of mind. And dominating my mind is he, a figure of tall stature, and he tells me who I am through touch. His thoughts are transferred to my being and tells me I'm less, I'm not equal, I'm not even enough. Have you seen my soul? Have you seen my mind? It feels like I left my sanity behind. It feels like I have not had a peace of mind. Have you seen my soul? Have you seen my mind? It feels like I left my sanity behind. It feels like I have not had a peace of mind.
Carrie Mae Weems and my mother. When we talk about the Black diaspora and its music, society's concern is on profiteering from and exploiting labor from these artists. We must not forget the atrocities that have been done to these people. As you can see from the media, these newspaper articles clearly show how cool jazz music was. These cyclical patterns of pain and resilience are the core of the blues. This next slide shows you a more recent country. Here you can see Trayvon Martin from my hometown of Miami, Florida. Ahmaud Arbery. On the very top right, you can see Louisiana State Penitentiary violating the 13th Amendment. So I asked the question, who killed Trayvon? Who killed Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, Kimani Gray, Jonathan Farrell, Breonna Taylor? Too many human beings reduced to mere hashtags, forgotten digital tombstones. Again, I asked the question, what should the blues sound like in 2023? Over-policing has been plaguing black and brown communities since the inception of the United States. Here we can see a portrait of Jimmy Lee Jackson, a civil rights activist and deacon, who was murdered by police officer James Bonner Fowler in 1965. His death was the catalyst for the crucial Selma to Montgomery marches in the United States. Before I play this tune, I want to say that this is not a protest song. There needs to be a realization as to not what, but why the black community is repeatedly creating art that details current environmental situations before we deal with the subjugation and glorification of the group's content.
I have not seen a day longer than tomorrow. I have a soul that whispers for release, but is sheltered by this hollow wound. I am bound, bruised, and twisted out of my physical essence into a spiritual fume by someone whose face is the color of anger and gloom. They beat my body and pinch my flesh with bullets made from metal pest. Mama, don't you cry when you see me down. Mama, don't you sit and let them get you down. I know it's hard because you gave me to this world filled with joy and happy tears, and the world has given me back beaten, wrecked, and no longer here.
This composition was inspired by Negro spiritual Wade in the Water. Using riffs and call and response, I crafted an 8-measure melody that represents the 8 days that Jimmy Lee spent in the hospital before dying. I ask once again, what should the blues sound like in 2023? Before we continue on to my last composition, I want to read this quote from Ben Sidran from my research done to complete this project by the book entitled Cultural Codes: Making of a Black Music Philosophy by William C. Banfield. Ben states, black music can be seen as a function and to some extent a cause of peculiar black ontology. Thus, the investigation of black music is also the investigation of the black mind, the black social orientation, and primarily the black culture. The first black solo musician on the scene was the blues singer. These musicians composed their own songs based for the first time on secular problems of the black individual. The musician is the document, the information itself. The impact of stored information is transmitted not through records or archives, but through the human response of life. And that response is ongoing, in the air, everywhere, an alternative, constantly available to those who have ears to hear. Ben. Finally, the composition Alone in a Crowded Room represents the reality of my being. This composition draws from my research and readings done on Invisible Man, written during the Harlem Renaissance by famous author Ralph Ellison. In Ellison's own words, I was looking for myself and asking everyone except myself questions which I and only I could answer. It took me a long time and much painful boomeranging of my expectations to achieve a realization everyone else appears to have been born with, that I am nobody but myself. Being an American black man, more often than not, I find facing the reoccurring theme of racism being an obstacle for myself establishing an individual identity. But at the end of the day, I am who I am. As you can see from some of the multiple dimensions I drew from to complete this project, on the top left, as you can see from the top left, Kerry James Marshall's A Portrait of the Artist as a Shadow of His Former Self, along with W.C. Handy on the piano, Louis Armstrong, Nikki Giovanni, all of these artists from the Black diaspora helped in me actualizing this vision. Really, I can't thank you. I can't thank these individuals more than enough. The way that I would like to evolve this project is contributing it to the profession. This project inspired me to want to further expand my understanding and educate others about the importance of Black culture and why is it integral to the American psyche. I've created a class I hope to teach one day, African American Music Appreciation, where I want students to identify examples in which African Americans have used their art as a vehicle to express the need for a better society and learn to connect musical creative thinking with the advancement of our natural environment. For the future, I plan on performing and recording these compositions from the project along with new compositions from my book. I want to continue developing as a trumpet player, composer, educator, brother, friend, human, all while honoring the brave artists that came before me. I'd like to thank the BGJI community for accepting me and trusting me to tell my story. You can see some of the text and information and other dimensions of artwork and philosophy that I used to complete this project, such as Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, Cultural Codes, A Making of a Black Music Philosophy. I'd like to give a big thank you to Danilo Perez, Patricia Perez, Marco Pignataro, Witness Matt Lau, Farai Malek, Dr. Emmett Price III, Marquise Hill, Adam Cruz, among a long list of people that need to be up there. My parents, my brother, my sister, BGJI community, the musicians that helped actualize this vision. I thank you all so much for the work and commitment that you helped to help me bring this vision to reality. Thank you so much.
Yeah, John, congratulations. Powerful presentation, and we're gonna open up for comment and questions, and we're gonna start with your committee member, Farai Malek.
Jonathan, congratulations.
Thank you.
Beautiful presentation. I think, as I said in our meeting, I think the Venn diagram. Can we go back to that Venn diagram so just we can have another look at that? I think that's such a powerful image, and I really like that you separated these ideas, because I think sometimes when we're talking about our experiences as Black people in this country, it can be difficult for others to relate to, and I think that this is very relatable. So thank you for expressing this in that way. I think it's very powerful. I think dedication number 2, also so beautiful, powerful. I love I think women, as Black women, were often portrayed as aggressive and loud, and your piece is so gentle and beautiful and expressive and powerful, and it's sort of the antithesis of the way we think about Black women in society. So thank you, just on a personal note, thank you for writing something that gentle and beautiful. I think one thing I want you to think about is where do we find hope in the midst of this? And for me, it's sharing in my humanity. If I can be myself and let others see me and let others see that I'm a person too, that gives me hope on a personal level. So I think one thing I would just encourage for you to do is think about how can you find hope in your expression of your artistry. That's all. Beautiful job.
And I would like to pass the microphone back to the advisor, Witness Matlow.
Thank you, Marco. Jonathan, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's been a long road, but short at the same time, and it's been a great pleasure working together. It was an honor for me to just see the beginning and to how far you've traveled on this project and to take it on. And I appreciate how you've found a way to address issues that are difficult in society and through music, and try to use music as a tool to kind of encourage those conversations that are tough to have. At the same time, you trying to keep your originality as a musician and composer. As Farai said, I appreciate how you've defined the topic. Like a research study should have a topic that's definable by the researcher. How do you define your topic? And you've given us the definition of alone, the definition of crowded room, and the variables that contribute to what alone could be, a result of gentrification, racism, depression, and also what a crowded room, what constitutes to a crowded room. And you've tried to relate that through the literature in African American studies, or Black studies. A lone, invisible man, the concept of what does it mean to be invisible, and that state of who is and what is an invisible man, and the struggles of him trying to overcome visibility. While the room could be crowded, at the same time, you could be alone. Yeah. I'll try and go quickly as possible. So I appreciate you honoring those who have come before us. We are here because of their love for truth, the love for justice, and the love for the betterment of society. And what should then the blues that they've felt back then sound like? The blues that we feel today, what should the blues in 2023 sound like? That's a question for an artist. Dedication to Roy, I appreciated that you've tried to, at the same time, bring in double consciousness, that's W.E.B. Du Bois, whom in his efforts to address race relations in America, he tried to address the problem by attending to the question. The question is, how does it feel to be the problem? And for him, he wrestled with this, trying to understand what is the problem, what is a problem that America has. And he very nicely summed it up by saying the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. It still is that problem even today. Talking beyond the Americas, it's the problem of the lighter skin to the darker skin of man. It is there in Africa, it is there in Asia. And then how do we come about facing that and wrestling with seeing one another as equal, as all humans? And yes, through music, you're trying to address all of that, and it can be tough sometimes, and being that person to take the torch and saying, I'm gonna go at this, sometimes puts you in that position where there's it's a big responsibility. The kitchen table, I liked how the trumpet sound kind of had that very warm voice for me. It reminded me of a voice that guided me, the voice that raised me, the voice that helped me feel warm. And our mothers, our black mothers, having been raised by a black woman and having to wrestle with what society defines a black woman as, different from what I had learned, what I know to be. And that sense of trying to find the truth being hidden away from me. And, I appreciate that, as Farai said, thanks for highlighting that. And we go back to, what you're trying to do with this and the experience of being black in America. You've touched on Trayvon Martin. You've touched on, that's definitely a police brutality there. George Floyd, the story of George Floyd was reflected in that, and I think many of us could relate to what you were talking about there. I want to say thank you. This should not be the end. I would like to see how you go forward with all of this, and we'll continue to have the conversation. Congratulations.
Thank you.
John, congratulations. This was incredibly strong presentation. From what you have to say to the music itself, everything was so strong, and the music was really gorgeous. I guess my question is, before and now after, is there anything that you feel changed about, it's a bit of a personal question, but here you shared this, personal thoughts and feelings. Did anything change within before and after going through that whole year and this whole process?
Yes, thank you, Lehi, for the question. I would say the biggest thing for me is community in terms of being at the Berklee Global Jazz Institute. We're in a room, especially in the master's program, with 20 different people from different sides of the world, so it forces you to think more externally versus internally, at the same time working on yourself internally to how to deal with people from different cultures. And once you learn how to deal with people from different cultures and different ideals, it helps you kind of deal with yourself in that way. So to answer your question, I feel as though when I first started the project, I was mainly thinking about the alone aspect of what it feels like to dive into the music from the Black diaspora and really learn these people's stories. But the crowded room is just this open, general, vague type of a thing that is also subjugated onto Black people, something that I've experienced myself. So trying to figure out ways to bring people in really helped me complete this process, which wouldn't have been done without this community. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Really, congratulations.
Just a quick thank you for such a powerful presentation. And I was just writing a few words that you really conveyed: wisdom and a deep authority, history, and something that I just appreciate so much about you, dedication. From the very beginning of this year, I've seen it in the practice rooms, in the classes, on your instrument, in this music, and in this presentation. It's very, very powerful. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
John. I have so much I want to say, but let me start. Let's go back to the music a little bit, and then I'm gonna tell you everything I want to tell you. But I know you prepare. You have example of things that talk a little bit about your composition process, and your music is beautiful. So can you talk a little bit about presenting what you have prepared for this part?
Okay. So originally I said that there was 4 compositions, but there was an additional one that is the kind of closer of the project. And did it go out? Okay. But this is the last musical example from my project that encapsulates the Black diaspora and trying to use all the elements from W.C. Handy to Scott Joplin to Christian Scott and Danilo Perez and Wayne Shorter. I mean, we're just trying to homogenize all of these styles from the Black diaspora. So this composition, If You Laugh Tomorrow Will Be Fun, deals with the mental health of the Black community. What happens at the intersection of mental health and one's experience as a member of the Black community? While the experience of being Black in America varies tremendously, there are shared cultural factors such as racism, discrimination, and inequity that can significantly affect a person's mental health. An environment that fosters being alone and invisible because of the color of your skin can be stressful and even traumatizing. Additionally, members of the Black community face structural challenges accessing the care and treatment that they need. Black adults living below the poverty line are more than twice as likely to report serious psychological distress than those with more financial security. Despite the needs, only 1 in 3 Black adults who need mental health care receive it, according to the American Psychiatric Association. This composition is dedicated to all the individuals that lost their battle with mental health. May you finally sleep peacefully.
Scorn will efface each footprint that you make. I love your laughter, arrogant and bold. You are too splendid for this city street. If you laugh tomorrow will be fun. Until then, dance under the sun, sing in the rain, feeling no pain. You laugh, I laugh, we laugh today. If you laugh tomorrow will be fun. Until then, dance under the sun, sing in the rain, feeling no pain. You laugh, I laugh, we laugh today. Today 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 I laugh, we laugh today. I laugh, we laugh today. Today I laugh, we laugh today.
So that was the musical example of me trying to synthesize and homogenize all of the influences from black music, and this composition is dedicated to Mr. Wayne Shorter himself.
Wow, I'm glad I asked that question because we needed to hear this too. That was
Yeah.
so.
I was waiting for it because Farai you asked about the hope.
Yeah.
And I was like,
So, okay, I'm gonna be closing this. This is what I wrote here as I'm listening to your music. Soulful, sincere, personal, emotional, true, and powerful. And now that I wrote this, I was just thinking about the music. These are the same adjectives that I think represent you as a person. And I had the opportunity to know you well because you work in my team, and so way beyond the academic thing, and so this is what I want to tell you. In the program Global, we say that the question is the answer, and your question, where does the blues sound like in 2023? It's such a great place where you are with your mind right now in your art. And I love what Farai asked, where do we find hope? And I was thinking about this, and I'm sorry for making this comparison, but butterflies, right? Butterfly, they don't know. They can see their wings, so they don't know how beautiful they are. And I don't think you know how beautiful you are. And I mean it. And so where do we find hope? I have it in front of me. Congratulations, this is amazing.
Thank you.
This is amazing, man.
Thank you all.
Maestro Danilo. Microphone.
You said it all in there, my brother. Jonathan, it's been a pleasure meeting you, working with you. Also appreciating the depth of your journey, because you have been dealing with a lot of issues. This project is about self-realization and how your space in the world we live on, and the acknowledgement of so many difficult times that we are going. There's a tendency to define social progress in America by the upward mobility of various those minority groups. And we celebrate it, we count them, we celebrate them because they went to a middle class, they jumped from being poor to being middle class, and they got a degree, they got a master program, and they got streaming values, and they make money winning the lottery, and they play basketball and make a lot of money, or they box and they make all this. We celebrate that. But today you're telling us something very important to me is, and that's my question to you, how do we imagine a different mode of addressing security and safety in this 21st century? I think that's a big issue in this topic. Do you have any idea?
Security and safety in this society?
Yes.
The
only way we know right now is the jail system.
Yeah.
And that it's directed to the minority. It's another form of slavery.
Yeah, well, the prison pipeline is also known as the biggest slave ship on land.
Yeah.
Which is, but to answer your question, how do we go?
How do you envision? Nobody has the answer, but how would you envision in your dreams going to the idea of what she asked about hope and addressing that's a big issue? How would you envision this world in the 21st century?
More conversations like this, exactly what we're doing here. I mean, for example, this presentation wouldn't even make it in a Florida high school because of the laws that are going on with speaking about subjects like this. So in order to change the world with these issues, I feel like the more that we bring up the conversations and we make these conversations more normal, that would allow the dialogue to bring forth change.
What about thinking about touring in the jail system?
The jail system, unfortunately, specifically in the United States, is...
But bring in music too. Creating another space there for touring. Okay. And bringing a presentation like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think that all prisoners, all inmates, especially the ones that are locked up indiscriminately, deserve the right and the chance to be able to express themselves through art, no matter. I mean, it's not supposed to be jail, it's supposed to be a rehabilitation.
Exactly.
So actually changing the dialogue to fitting the actual narrative, to making it a true rehabilitation instead of just being in a cell, you know.
And that brings my last point. It's like, how do we deal with capitalism being the secular religion of our country here in America? How do we deal, now that you have earned the master program, to commit, to educate, to bring awareness? It's people like you that make the change. If somebody asks me, how do I feel hope? I'm looking at it, as Marco said. Yeah. You're one of the most respectful, beautiful, loving man I ever met, and kind. And I agree with what Freya said. There's a subtle sound in your music that comes through, and delicate aspect and fragility that speaks volume in who Jonathan is. As Marco said, and I will say it, don't ever forget how beautiful you are.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.